Hey everybody, Mr. Koly here. I'm the Ellis band director, and I cannot wait to get started this coming fall. Normally, I would have brought the band to Indian Lake and to Nannyberry to perform, answer questions, tell you a little bit about what band is, what it is, and what we do there. Unfortunately, this year is different than most due to COVID, and so we haven't been in school. So I'm making this video to try and get everybody pumped up and answer as many questions as I can. With this video, you will be getting a Google form that if you're interested in band, you can fill out and send it back to me. That will ensure that you join band. A couple of the important things that I get asked all the time. Do you need any prior experience to join band? The answer is absolutely not. If you're thinking, I don't really play an instrument, then band is for you. If you're thinking, I already play an instrument that is in the band, band is also for you. Kind of for everybody. But the most important thing to remember is that 6th grade is the time. And the reason for that is that 7th grade band is filled with kids that have been playing for a year already. So if you joined in 7th grade, you'd be playing some catch up. It's not impossible, but it's hard work. So again, very important, if you want to do band, 6th grade is the time. No prior experience needed. Again, if you want to join band, 6th grade is the time. Fill out the Google form and send it to me, and I'll make sure that you get signed up. Another thing that we're going to be doing today is introducing some of the instruments to you. Again, I would have done this had I visited Nannyberry and Indian Lake if we were in school. So we've got some students that were a lot like you that either went to Ellis or Hawkins, and they're going to play some instruments and demonstrate the instruments of the band, what they sound like, how to play them. I'll tell you a little bit about their function in the band, and then we're going to play a little bit of something for you at the end to show you how all the instruments sound together. If you have any questions after this video, or you're interested in band, or you're not sure about some things, please email me, tim.koly, K-O-L-Y, @sumnerschools.org. I need everybody's help to get the band going this year because, again, we're sort of behind the 8 ball with not having the opportunity to recruit like normal. So again, tim.koly, K-O-L-Y, @sumnerschools.org. No prior experience needed. 6th grade is the time, and complete the Google form and send it to me. Be happy to answer any and all questions that you have, and let's start this year out strong. The first instrument we're going to be talking about in the Woodwind family is the flute. Now, you might be thinking, why is it a woodwind? It looks like metal. That's true. But see, when flutes were made, they were originally made out of wood, and so they just kind of stayed in the Woodwind family. The flute consists of a very high-pitched sound. The flutes generally sit closer to the front of the ensemble, closer to the audience, because they're a little softer than most of the other instruments in the band, as well as being high-pitched. So they're going to sit closer to the front of the ensemble. Flutes produce a very nice, pretty high tone that oftentimes will play the melody, or sometimes add embellishments to make it a little bit more interesting to listen to. This is what the flute sounds like. And the flute, the way you produce the tone on the flute is by blowing over the sound hole on the head joint here. Half of your air goes off, and then half of it goes into the flute itself, producing the tone. The next instrument in the woodwind family is the clarinet. Now, like a lot of the other woodwind instruments that you'll see in the next clip, use reeds, little wooden pieces that attach to the mouthpiece, and that's what actually produces the sound. You blow across the reed, it vibrates, producing a tone, and then you change that tone based on what you're pressing down, the keys that you're pressing down on the clarinet. It's very similar to the recorder. If you played the recorder in elementary school, it's kind of the same concept, except that it uses that wooden piece called a reed. Clarinets generally sit near the flutes, closer to the front of the band, because they're quieter. So you need maybe more clarinet players to hear that instrument, hear what their part is that's being played. This is what the clarinet sounds like. Next instrument here is the bass clarinet. Now, it kind of looks like a clarinet, except a whole lot bigger. So a lot of instruments in the band have instruments that are related to them. This is related to the clarinet. The next instrument that we'll see, the saxophone, that has a lot of different instruments too. A lot of different types of saxophones. The bass clarinet, like I said before, produces a much lower sound. Generally, instruments in the band that are longer, larger, produce a lower sound. Just like the clarinet, though, it uses a reed that vibrates to produce the sound, and you push keys down to change the pitch. A lot of times these instruments will double some of the bass lines of the lower instruments in the band. This is what the bass clarinet sounds like. The next instrument in the Woodwind family we have here is the alto saxophone. Some of you may have seen this instrument before because it's an instrument that's used in a large variety of music. Obviously concert band, but it is included in jazz ensembles, rock and roll, pop music. You kind of see it all over the place. And a lot like the clarinet, it uses a reed that you blow into, and it causes the reed to vibrate, causing the tone. And you press the buttons down, the keys down on the saxophone to help change the pitch. Saxophones, a lot of times, will sit more in the center of the ensemble to help produce this really nice tone in the middle of the group. It sounds like this. The next instrument that we're going to talk about is the first instrument in the brass family. Now, before we were talking about woodwinds, and the woodwinds produce a sound with a reed, like we talked about. The first instrument in the brass family that we're talking about today is the trumpet. The trumpet uses a brass mouthpiece that produces a sound when you buzz your lips through it. After you buzz your lips into the mouthpiece, you press down the valves, and it produces different notes through the trumpet. It sounds a little something like this. The next instrument in the brass family that we have is the French horn. Now, the French horn is a unique looking instrument because it's all coiled up and tied together, but just like the other brass instruments, it uses a mouthpiece that we buzz our lips into to produce the sound. The French horn that you can see, just like the trumpet before this, has valves as well, and it uses a mouthpiece that you buzz your lips into, like I said before. And generally the French horn is going to sit somewhere in the middle or on the outside kind of the band, and oftentimes French horns produce what we call counter melodies. So there's this, you have the melody, the part of the tune that people recognize. The French horns usually add a nice, pretty layer of music that couples nicely with the melody. Here's what the French horn sounds like. Another member of the brass instrument family is the trombone. Now, the trombone is one of the most unique looking instruments in the band in that it doesn't have valves like the trumpet, the French horn, or like we'll see next, the euphonium. It has a slide that helps to change the pitches. And like the other brass instrument, it does include a mouthpiece where your lips need to buzz into the instrument. But again, the trombone uses a slide instead of valves. And it sounds like this. So as you can see, when the slide goes out, it gets a lot lower. And then brings it back in, and it brings the pitch up. It's a wonderful instrument. Another instrument in the brass family is the euphonium. Now, the euphonium has a lot in common with the trombone in that their mouthpieces are very similar, sometimes the same. And it has a similar tone to the trombone, but as you can see, the euphonium has valves like the trumpet or the French horn, unlike the trombone, which, if you remember, uses the slide. And the euphonium, whereas the trombone is one of the oldest members of the brass family, the euphonium is actually one of the youngest, or one of the newer members of the brass family. It's a wonderful instrument, and it sounds like this. And finally, the last instrument for today in the brass family, we have the tuba. Now, as you can see, the tuba is the largest wind instrument in the band, and it produces the lowest notes in the ensemble. This is extremely important because it helps round out the sound of the rest of the band. When you join band in the fall, we'll talk more about how to balance and blend, because it's very important to do so. And you'll even see them play together, and you'll understand how that is supposed to work. But the tuba is one of the largest instruments in the band. It produces low notes, keeps everything nice and tuned, sits in the back of the ensemble, or sometimes off to the side, depending on the size of the group or the room that you're playing in. But generally, it's going to sit in the back. And although the number of tuba players in a band is generally smaller than any other ensemble, it produces a very big, important sound. And it sounds like this. Percussion section is very different from the rest of the band in that a lot of times people think percussion and they think drums. And while that is true, drums are a part of the percussion section, that is really just a small part of what is asked of the students in the percussion section. Again, of course, it consists of drums, snare drums, bass drums, but what it also consists of are mallet instruments. Now, in elementary school, you may have experienced playing on xylophones. This is very similar to that. The marimba and xylophones and vibraphones or any kind of mallet instrument like this mimics a piano. So if you have any experience playing the piano, you might have a little bit of an advantage in the percussion section because a lot of the instruments follow the basic layout of a piano. Why don't you give us a little demonstration of what this instrument sounds like? And this instrument, the marimba, sounds beautiful when it produces some of those really nice melodies in the band. In marching band, we'll put these out, in high school, of course, in marching band. These sit out in front of the field and just help, add a little bit of melody and beauty to what we're doing. And over here, we've got the snare drum. Now this, you're probably familiar with how, a drum, snare drum looks like this. And it can be used many different ways. You can play it with the snares on or the snares off. Why don't you play with the snares on? Are they on? Yeah. Okay, and then if you turn the snares off, it gives it a very different sound. So if you're in the percussion section, it's very important to know that it's not just going to be drums that you play. So if you're, extremely interested in just playing the drums, that's why you want to join percussion. It's important to know that you'll need to play all of the instruments. In fact, you start on the marimba and the mallet instruments so that everyone can get a good understanding of where those notes are. So that's the basic layout of the band from top to bottom, from the woodwinds, brass, and the percussion. Next, we're going to play a piece all together to give you an idea of what it sounds like when these sounds mix.